Welcome to Perfectly Imperfect Me 365, the podcast where we get real about mental health, messy growth, and being human one day at a time. I'm your host, Rachel, and together we're navigating life's chaos with honesty, compassion, and a little humor. Let's get into it. Hey, Marcus Smith II's journey is proof that success on paper doesn't always equal peace of mind. He lived the dream so many chase, a first-round NFL draft pick who played for the Philadelphia Eagles, Seattle Seahawks, and Washington Commanders. But when the stadium lights dimmed, Marcus found himself in a quiet fight no one else could see, battling anxiety, depression, and the loss of who he was outside the game. It nearly cost him his life. The turning point came when he decided to stop hiding. Therapy, vulnerability, and a willingness to tell his story became the start of his healing and his new purpose. Today, Marcus has transformed that pain into impact. He's become a leading voice in athlete mental wellness, advising NFL teams and league offices on mental health initiatives, guiding college and high school programs toward emotional resilience, and helping corporate leaders bring mindfulness and purpose into high-performance spaces. Whether he's speaking to athletes, executives, or students, Marcus helps people drop the mask and reconnect with themselves. His message is simple yet powerful. Mental wellness isn't about just making it through. It's about becoming who you truly are, one honest day at a time. Thank you, Marcus, for joining me. And just a few quick reminders, because I am a licensed psychotherapist and I'm almost licensed in 10 states. I just need to remind everybody who is listening that this episode will discuss frank discussion about suicidality, and it can be very difficult for some of my listeners. So if you fall under that space, I'm asking that you just take care of yourself. It is okay to pause this. It's okay to come back and listen to it with somebody that you have supportive, in nature with you. Listen to it with a friend. You can listen to it with your therapist. But I just want to remind everybody that this episode is not a replacement for therapy or to be used as any kind of treatment for anyone struggling with suicidal thinking. So with that, welcome, Marcus. This has been long overdue. I'm so excited and just so appreciate you. And I think it's amazing what you're doing, because I'm just going to kind of share a little backstory. And I don't know that you even realize how much you touched my life the day we met. And it was just a few weeks ago. You were standing there. And I have to be honest with you, I noticed you because, my son is a ball player and he's big into shoes. And I noticed the shoes you were wearing at the training. And I'm like, Cole would love those shoes. And then when I met you outside of that and you just came up and you just introduced yourself as if it was so matter of fact, which was amazing, because most men, let alone athletes, don't do that. Right. And you were so just transparent. And I remember thinking, gosh, this is amazing. You said something, and also for my listeners, I'm not throwing my son under the bus. I did ask him for his permission if I can share with you, with you and my viewers, which I already shared with you, but my listeners, how we had that connection, right? You told me you're a suicide survivor, and I very just quickly just asked what, and I'm not going to share that. But the one piece that you did share and I shared with you was that my son stopped playing ball in college. He made that choice because he wanted to experience life in college, number one, but also to find out who he was without basketball, because that's what he was defined as, right? He was defined as Cole, who played basketball, Cole, the basketball player, Cole, the baller, and he wanted to know who he was and the ability that he had to tell us, his parents, my ex-husband and I, that he just no longer wanted to play college ball. And I remember you said, I wish at that time, I had that strength to say that, to do that. So you really touched me, because it made me just feel that how I handled what he shared with me. Because I question that sometimes, as a parent, you always question yourself, did I handle it correctly? Right. And you really just validated that I handled it really well. So I don't even think I shared that with you, but you did touch my life like that moment. I felt like, oh my gosh, I really gave him this safe space to just tell me this. And so,
Appreciate that. Thank you. Thank you.
no, yeah. So let's begin. Just tell us where you're at. Like, I mean, let's just be honest. I think I looked up like first round pick, 26, 24, somewhere. Like I vaguely
It
remember
was
it was
26. Oh,
26 overall, which,
14.
right, which is huge, right?
Yeah.
Like that's a dream for many people, many kids. And
Yeah.
this is what you were given and how you were from there to where you are today, which is also, in my eyes, a huge champion. I just want you to know that. And I'm sure in many people's eyes, but just share your story and like how you went from there to where you are today.
Yeah, man. It was a long journey, I would say, and I appreciate the opportunity to be on this podcast with you. I know we've been kind of going back and forth trying to get a schedule set up, but I am honored and pleased to be on the show with you. So I appreciate you for having me on.
Of
But
course.
I always wanted to play in the NFL since I was 5 years old. And my father used to always watch Monday Night Football, Sunday Night Football. So I was always glued to the TV watching football and wondering one day, like, would that be me? You know what I mean? So I found this infatuation with the game itself, and I fell in love with it. And my dad put me in it, and my dad was my coach. Right, he was my
Mm,
coach all the way up until I was 11. But
wow.
what people don't really understand, my first anxiety attack was when I was 8, and nobody in
Wow.
my community and nobody in my family had any education of what it was. I come from a small town in Columbus, Georgia. It's mixed, white, black, Hispanic, different walks of life. But I come from predominantly black community, and
Okay.
our community is not so much well versed in mental health, especially not back then.
Right.
So I remember my grandmother. She put this like blood pressure cuffing on me to see what my blood pressure was. But I didn't think anything of anxiety. We didn't even know that
Right.
anxiety or depression was, an illness or a thing,
Right. Because we're talking
right?
like
So,
20-ish years ago, right? You're 33,
right,
like so
right. This,
22 years ago, right? I mean,
yeah,
and nobody was talking about it then. I mean, I've been in private practice
nope.
28 years. And from where I was then to today, it's like we didn't talk about that. And I have a very close knit family. We did not talk about mental health growing up. And here I talk
Nope.
about it with my kids often.
Yeah,
So,
and it's an important thing now.
yeah.
It's something that you should talk about and that should be on the table when you talk to your kids about it. It's just like you working out or
Right.
you going to your barber or you going to
Right.
your favorite hairstylist, right? Mental health should be the same way, right? And
Right.
I think we oftentimes do everything backwards. It was like, oh, well, we're going to do all the physical things, but we forget
Right.
that your mental is what takes care of everything
Right.
else. So you have to put that first.
Right. So your grandma put that cuff on you because I
Yeah.
distracted us. And what did she say when she saw that?
So my mother and my dad they were at a dinner with each other, and they came back and they didn't know what was wrong with me. So from that point on, I was having anxiety attacks in my sleep all the time.
Wow.
So it became something natural for me to be in a deep anxiety state, right? Very high anxiety, as you would say, right? Not really knowing if it's turning into depression or anything like that.
Right.
But I carried that with me for pretty much the rest of my time while I was playing sports. But sports end up being like a safe haven for me. Like on the
Right.
field, it was a place where I could be at peace and not have, so much anxiety. And I also wasn't eating as much either. So
Mm.
you see me in high school, you see a picture of me in high school, you'd be like, man, dang, man, you wasn't eating at all, right? So
Right.
so I get to high school, and when I look at that part of my career being in high school, there was a lot of anxiety and depression that I was dealing with in high school,
Wow.
and I did not know it at all. I did not know what to name it. or anything. It wasn't anything being talked about when it comes to that.
Right.
So when you even fast forward to college, right? You fast forward to college. I get a scholarship to the University of Louisville, and I'm going to play quarterback. So that
Oh,
was my
wow.
position. That is what I played, and I get my position changed. So now
Mm,
there is more um, trials and tribulations, if you will, that is
right.
on me to be able to perform at a high level.
Of course.
But what happened was, when I always explain it like this, when you're a kid, you can run, jump, play, you can do everything. You don't have to stretch or anything. You don't have to stretch. You don't
Right.
have to do nothing. You can just go get up out of bed and run.
Right.
But when you get older, you have to start taking care of your body, because you don't want to pull a hamstring or
Of
anything like
course.
that. So I look at it just like that. I was able to mask and still play at a high level and not be affected.
Wow.
So in college, I'm dealing with all of this talking. I'm talking to my mom about it. I'm like, man, something is going on with me. Like, I don't have an appetite to eat. Like, I can't eat. And I just feel sad all the time. That's what I was telling my mom in
Right.
college. And she was like, "Oh, you're gonna be okay. It's gonna be fine. You just
Right.
gotta stick it out." So in my mind, I'm like, "Okay, I'm a football player. I'm a barbaric football player. Like, I gotta push through it."
Right.
Well,
And
yeah. To
almost
all your
like
listeners,
invalidating yourself, like this is normal.
right,
There's no problem with it. Like this is normal. Like what's really wrong with me if I can't like, deal with this? But nobody around you is saying
right.
that it's actually not normal.
Right, and then you look at the locker room, and you
Right.
see everybody in the locker room, and it's like nobody's saying anything. So I don't know if my teammate is dealing with something, or he
Right.
has something going on at home, or whatever it is. I'm just looking around the locker room. Well, ain't nobody else complaining about it. I ain't gonna complain about it.
Right.
And a lot of times you may have those coaches and things of that nature that may say some off the wall stuff to you that will make you be like, you know what, I'm gonna suck it up and I'm gonna keep going, right?
Right.
In which you don't realize that if you have the team around you to help you continue to keep going and not try to do it by yourself, you would be better off. So I didn't realize that. And so now I'm having all of this baggage from when I was 8.
Right.
Now I'm going into the NFL, right? Where, my dream is about to come true, but now I'm carrying all this weight and all this baggage with
Right.
me that I haven't addressed yet. And to some of your listeners out there who, may be carrying something, it's important to release whatever you're carrying, because I truly believe that the more you speak, the more you free yourself. There are
Right.
things that have happened in your life, there are things that have went on in your life that you may have forgot about, that is just in the back of your brain somewhere in a compartment that you just left there and you just forgot about and you
Right.
never addressed it.
Right.
Some part of your life, you're going to have to address it, and it's going to rear his head somewhere again.
Right.
And you're going to realize, like, wow, I never addressed that when I was 8. I think it's important for me to talk about
Right.
that, whether that's to a psychiatrist, whether that's to a
Yeah.
therapist, whether
And that's
that's
what I
to
was
a
just going to
team.
say. That releasing it doesn't mean you need to go out and write a book. Like the releasing it could be you just speak to like a private therapist. If you're not comfortable, and I tell that to my clients a lot, like, you know, if you're not comfortable sharing it with people that
Hmm.
may very well reject you or even invalidate you, don't share it with them.
Yeah.
Find somebody that you can share it with that is a secure space, that's trusting, that and it so it may just be that therapist that you don't really know, but you know what? They're bound by HIPAA guidelines that they're not sharing it with anybody. But at least you
Yeah.
just get it out and you speak it.
Hmm.
So yeah,
Yeah. I truly believe that. I
yeah.
believe that wholeheartedly. I was just talking to some middle school kids, trying to get them to speak more, right? Then one of the kids ended up coming up to me and said he had lost one of his
Mm,
his grandfather, and he hadn't talked about it. And so
wow.
even just small things like that is important. Like, you have to feel, right? Be able to be in the moment. Like, if something happens, there is something traumatic that happens, like, it's okay for you to be in that moment and
Right.
deal with that in that moment and not have anything else that's going on around you, but just really,
Right.
give yourself that time to feel.
Yeah.
As a football player, for me, I never gave myself time to feel anything.
That's
So
good.
when it came to crying, when it came to somebody getting hurt. Like you got to think, if somebody get hurt on the field, we're looking. They go get them, pick them up,
They take them off
roll
the
them
field.
out,
Yep.
and then we resume play like nothing happened.
Right. And
So
if
sometimes,
they're not your teammate, you probably walk away. And then maybe if you see that it's really bad, you guys get down as a knee as a team to, pray that they're okay.
right,
But the reality is you're not walking and helping somebody else up, especially like that. No way. You do not. That's like a sign of weakness, so to speak, in like the
right,
world. Right?
yeah, and that's exactly what it is.
Right.
You are so on point. Like man, like you see a guy get hurt, and you're like, dang man, like you're praying for that guy.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, you have to resume play like it
Right.
didn't happen. And that could be traumatic for us as well,
Of
you
course.
know?
I mean, as a mom, like as a therapist, as a mom, right, watching my kid play ball, and I would say to him, Cole, like you literally just accidentally, even if it was an accident, like literally just charged that kid and he went down. Why didn't you pick him up? He's like, Ma, you don't do that in the game. I'm like, what do you mean you don't do that? Like that but in that world, you don't do
Yep.
that. And so,
Yep.
yeah, here you are, you're still playing at this high level, but you're still this 8-year-old kid that has just dealing with anxiety, not even knowing how to get it out. And on the field, you're one person, right? Like you said, you wore this mask, but you get off that field, you take those pads off, and you are still Marcus Smith II, who is still dealing with all this anxiety. And nobody's like thinking there's a problem because you're excelling on the field. So why aren't you excelling in life? You can manage that. So,
That's exactly what I feel like
right.
people thought.
Yeah, I've got to imagine. Like, I think that's one of my questions. Is it like, what does it feel like for you? And I'll get to those questions later. But like that is that being this guy who switched from a role of a quarterback to your position, which was, totally different, right? And
Yeah.
now you're not talking about it. You're not at home anymore. You don't have your family around you. Your teammates are now your family, and nobody's talking. You don't have that support that you probably felt like you did at home, even if they didn't know how to help you, right?
Yeah, it was tough.
I'm sure.
It
So,
was not when I oh go ahead, I'm sorry.
no, that's okay. Keep going.
No, I was just gonna say it was tough in terms of like trying to figure out an identity with that and being in college in a place where I'm playing a position that I've never played before. I have to trust into to the coaches. The coaches are not my parents, but I have to trust them and
Right.
them knowing like, hey, this is a position that you need to be playing and that you're better at. But also have to trust that I'm gonna be able to get through this anxiety. If that means I'm not eating before practice, then
Hmm. Right.
that's what it is. But
Which is a vulnerability in itself because
yeah,
you're not eating, that increases the intensity of the anxiety, probably.
yeah. I was out there with nothing. I promise
Wow.
you. Like I'm in practice, nothing on my stomach.
Wow.
Nothing on my stomach. I couldn't because I would throw up before practice if I put
Mm.
something on it. That's how bad my anxiety was. And I just remember just getting through those tough moments and thinking that I could do the same thing when I got to the league. But like I said, as you get older, you
It's
have to
hard.
start taking care of yourself.
Yeah.
And
So at what
the
point,
NFL is no.
right? So at what point now you get drafted and now there's even more pressure on you. And I think we touched upon this in the training, like that my son, I know that for him, he was a college student. And I remember him saying, I just wish I had the guts to tell you guys that I want to quit. I'm like, what do you mean guts? You don't need guts. You just need a voice. Like you want to stop playing ball. That doesn't mean you're quitting. It just means you're choosing a different path in your life. Right. But here now, I believe I recall you saying like you were like one of the first to be like taken out, like from your family, like in this space. Right. And the
Hmm.
pressure of providing now
Hmm.
also is on top of playing well, dealing with your own mental health. I mean, like that is so much. How did you get to this place where you were able to talk about it, or did you not? And you, right, like go from there. Like what led up to
Yeah.
you sharing that? How did you know that you needed help?
So yeah, this story of when I got drafted to the NFL, two, 2014, I was 26 overall pick. Like I said before, the baggage was still with me.
Right.
Then now I have the need to perform. to make sure I take care of my family, to make sure that the coaches are happy. But the only person that wasn't being happy was me. I was doing everything for everyone else. And I
Mhm.
think, and not protecting, what was sacred to me, which was my mental well-being, dealing with the anxiety, dealing with the depression. And so that anxiety that I talk about ended up turning into depression while I was
Mm.
playing. Because my first year in the league, I didn't play as much. And my second year, I got hurt.
Okay.
So now I'm a person that is sitting with myself trying to figure out, like, is football really for me? Is this something that God really wants for
Right.
me? And so after my third season, I get cut from the Eagles and I get signed by the Seattle Seahawks. So I played there 1 year, and then the year after that, I signed a deal with the Seattle Seahawks. It was a 1 year deal. It was basically a prove it year deal. And like I said, I hadn't. This is 5 years in the league now, and I hadn't addressed any of these issues.
Mm.
And so it came to a head when I was in camp of 2018, and I was starting my fifth season in the NFL. I was having anxiety attacks in my sleep. I couldn't sleep and I couldn't perform at the highest level. I wasn't eating. I couldn't eat anything because I every time ate something, I would throw it up. So I was out on the football field like a vegetable. I was tired
Wow.
because I wasn't sleeping. I remember my
Right.
coaches asking me, "Hey, Marcus, are you okay?" Because I had bags under my eyes. So I wasn't sleeping the whole time. And so what led me to speaking out about it was I had one more anxiety attack in my sleep. And I remember getting up out of my bed and then I got in my car and I started to drive.
Mm.
Started to drive. I said to my wife, like, man, I got to get some air. So I started to drive. I'm going to the facility now and I'm going to this on a scenic route where there are rocks on the right side. And so as I'm going down this hill, I tip my car to the right. And as I'm tipping my car, my wife calls me and then I jerk the car back out of frustration. And when you have Bluetooth in the car,
Right.
the the phone rings through the car. So that's what startled me. So I
Right.
was gonna go over and then I jerked the car back when she
Mm.
called me. So now I'm talking to my wife on the phone and she's like, are you okay? You seem, very distraught when you left. Like, you gonna
Right.
be okay today? So I'm rushing her off the phone
Of
because
course.
I'm just trying to get rid of the pain. Like, I'm so tired of being depressed. I'm so tired of feeling
Mhm.
anxiety. Like, I can't perform at my highest level. Like, why is this happening to me? Like, I'm not praying. I'm not doing anything. I'm just
Right.
so far gone to the point where, like, nope, I'm gonna get rid of this pain. I don't care.
Just trying to survive, it sounds like.
Yeah, yeah, that's where I was. And I started to tip the car again after I get off the phone with her, and my mother-in-law called.
Good old
So
mother-in-law.
yeah, so my mother-in-law calls me, two people in my life that are, uh, they are really, really pivotal parts of my life, even now.
Yeah.
And by the time I'm done talking to her, I'm at the bottom of the hill, and that's when it hit me because I was safe and sound, and I
And
could
when we
not
say real
believe
fast,
what he's trying to do.
let me just clarify this for my listeners. When you're at the bottom of the hill, not meaning that he took his car off the bottom of the hill. He is down, he's descended with the road and you're at the
Yeah,
base of the hill. Okay, I just want to clarify that because some people might interpret it as like, right, just your journey. You didn't push it over, you didn't take your car off the cliff,
no, no, because the hill, it's like the hill is going like this,
right?
but on the right side is just a whole bunch of
Right.
rocks. Like it,
Yeah.
it's bad. But so as I'm going down, I'm at the bottom of the hill now,
Right.
and I'm sitting there, literally at the bottom of the hill, like, what did I just try to do? Like
Mhm.
that's when it hit me, and I went in the training room, told Pete Carroll, I told my D-line coach. That was the first time in my life I said I needed help.
That's what I was going to ask you. Who was the first person? I like get the chills because like I could just imagine like you probably felt so scared and so relieved at the same time.
Man, it was like a weight.
I
Like
bet.
soon as I said I needed help, and I said I can't do football right now. I need to take care of my mental health. Right, that's what I told them, and they were very. They really looked at me and they were like, "Man." we're going to get you the help that you need. So
Were
I'm
they
glad I
shocked?
was there. Was I shocked?
No,
Yes, I
were they
was.
shocked? Were they shocked? Because here they are, like
No,
they see you, but they weren't shocked that you needed help.
they were shocked. They were, because Seattle's a place where, if you know anything about Pete Carroll, he really is a player's coach, right? But it was just me, and my own fears of like not wanting to tell them, and you know what I
Of
mean?
course, you're
And
keeping it close to your chest because probably didn't want to burden people. If look, I work with people
right,
who have suicidal thinking, so what comes up is I don't want to burden people. Like I don't want them to think I'm crazy. I don't want them to like talk to me differently. I don't want them to even look at me differently, right? Treat me differently.
exactly.
So,
Yep.
I can imagine. Real fast, let me ask you a question. When you got in your car to drive and go for that
Mhm.
ride, did you have a plan at that moment before you got in that car that you were going to take your life?
No, I didn't
Okay,
have a plan when I first got in the car. It
right.
was not until I got to the hill and I'm like, you know what? This is a good idea here. That's what I was thinking. I realized in that moment, once I got to the bottom of the hill, it was just I just couldn't believe that I did that. I was
You were
so
desperate.
distraught. And let me say this. When I said I needed help, my wife was actually pregnant at the time too.
Oh,
She
wow.
came in, she was crying.
Hmm.
And I remember the look on her face, and I remember saying to myself that, you know what, it's so much bigger than me. Number one, because I felt like I was being selfish. And
Mm,
then number two, I wanted to make sure that I never made her feel like that again. And I want to be that all everything that I could be mentally. So that's why you see me do the things that I do now. Like I meet with a therapist once a week. Like I'm
that's
in the
awesome.
mental health space. Like I'm trying to get guys to understand the same thing because I dealt with it and I
Right.
understand it. So
And
yeah,
what people
man,
don't realize, I think that when it comes to suicidality, is that people can there can be the type that's very planned, methodical, and
Mhm.
premeditated, and that is when they're planning it, very desperate, very much in pain, and all they are thinking about is I just need this up. And then there's other people who have impulsivities like yours at that moment, did not have
Mhm.
intention of getting in the car. You were literally going for a drive, fresh air, to just get some space. But in that moment, thoughts are popping in your mind like, you know what, this would be a good idea. Like you see something, you're triggered by it. I could just do this. And all it takes is that quick impulsivity that changes the course of somebody's life, even though they may not really want that long term, right? Suicide is so definitive. There's no turning back from it, right? Like you described
Yeah,
yourself as I'm a suicide survivor because you did not do that. You had
right.
plans, and fortunately, your wife and your mother-in-law called, right?
Yeah,
And I know that startle of the Bluetooth cell phone, especially when you've got your ringer up, it can scare the crap out of you. So it's going to shock
that's
your
what.
nervous system right back into like place, right? What the
Yeah,
heck is that? Right? You don't even remember what you were
yeah,
doing the second before that because it's literally now you're scared, right? But, and that's the
yeah.
thing for my, right? So for the listeners, that's what I want them to know. Like, it doesn't have to be a thought out plan thing. It could be something that you don't have intentions. But I tell my clients, like, most people don't think about suicidal thinking or ways of ending their life or stopping the pain when they're happy, right? Nobody thinks they're like, you know what? It's a good day for me to go do this when things are going well. You do that because you're trying to just not deal with that pain in that moment. And it is, and that's why what I teach from a DBT perspective is really just you just have to survive that one moment, right? That moment is
Love
definitely
that.
painful, but if you could just survive that one moment, get to the next moment, just get to you're not going to feel like this always, but it's when those thoughts pop into my mind, like, oh my God, I'm always going to feel like this. It's never going to be different. Then you think in that like finality of like, I can't deal with this for the rest of my life, but you don't have to. You just have to survive that one moment,
You're so right.
you know,
You're so right. Yeah, because that one moment can dictate,
everything.
one thing in your life. Yeah, and it's
Right.
just that's what I try to get to people too.
Yeah. So take me now. You told your coaches, and now what do? They help you?
So yeah, so I told my coaches, they got me with a therapist that was off site, got me with a psychiatrist, They allow my wife to come to therapy with me. And the great thing about it, I had signed a contract. They allowed me to keep my money
Oh,
and
that's
go get the
awesome.
help. They allowed me to keep my money and go get the help. I was getting help all the way until I know, I'm sorry. I was getting help till November,
Okay.
until I saw my daughter born in October, and I wanted to make sure that I seen my daughter born before I went back to finish. So I ended up signing with the Commanders
Right.
in December, and I just finished the season out with them because I just wanted to finish what I started. And let me tell you, if I would have had the team of people around me to help me mentally, I would have been so much better. And I was just so happy to complete that with the team around me. You know what I
Right.
mean? Like I was just like, wow, like I felt so fresh and I
Hmm.
felt so at ease because I was still dealing with some parts of
Of
anxiety.
course.
But I didn't, but now I have tools in my toolbox to
Yeah.
help me navigate, whether it's, even me talking to a psychiatrist, or if I have to get on certain medications that, maybe really help me, you know what I mean? And
Yeah.
so I also remember when I finished, it was like I cried for like 2 or 3 days straight.
Mm,
And I hadn't cried that much. I mean, since it was a really long time.
right.
And it was just like everything, it was like a burden that
Yeah.
released out of me. And I was just so happy to be done at that moment. I was like so
I
happy,
know.
like, you know what? Everybody was trying to figure out, like, man, why'd you stop playing or why'd you get cut or anything like that? And I'm just like, man, you don't understand.
Yeah.
Like that feeling of not playing and knowing that, okay, this game is just a part of me.
Right.
There's so much bigger for me. There's a bigger purpose for me. And that's
Yep.
probably exactly the way your son felt,
A
you know?
100%. He is living his best life now. And you know what is interesting is he has transitioned from a player, right? And he wanted to go to a D3 school specifically because he didn't want his life to be, and, even as a D3 player, he played a lot. We didn't get him home for Thanksgiving. He had a great team and great coaches, but now he's at a D1 school. He's very much involved. He's one of the men's basketball coaches. He's probably working harder now as a basketball manager. Sorry, not a coach, misspoke. Manager. He's one of the managers, men's basketball manager. And it's a D1 school, and he's working harder than he was because he's at practices. If they have two a days, he's there, he's rebounding, and he loves it. But there's a different type of expectation, right? It's not Cole the baller. It's Cole, you're a bright kid. You are a business person. You're also somebody who understands basketball. You could play basketball, you could rebound, and you can be part of like helping us grow. And you could be accountable and show up. And that's it, right? Like I I loved watching him play. Do not get me wrong. Like I remember when he told me that he wanted to stop internally, like as a mom, like I felt sad, not because it was the wrong decision, but because the joy it brought me. And I made it very clear, you will not live your life to provide my joy. I will never
Mm,
be disappointed in a choice that you make if it's one for you. I would be more upset and more disappointed if you had played ball for the rest of your 2 years in college, extra, and you did it for your father and I. That would be so upsetting as a mom, right? And I try to explain that to a lot of my clients too, is that if you don't want to go to school, whether it be you're an athlete, right? And I think that it's interesting because the athletes that I have worked with, it's definitely harder to acknowledge that I'm going to walk away and I want to walk away from me, and to, in their minds, I don't want to let my family down, especially if they're at the level that you were at, right? Whereas people who, whether they want to go to school or don't want to go to school, if you don't want to go to
mhm.
school, but that's what your parents expect you to do and you don't want to disappoint them, don't spend their money. Don't go to school. You're going to be miserable. And that doesn't mean you can't go
Yep.
back, right? And so
Yeah.
you're now at this level, and I did some statistics finding, which is actually kind of scary and sad because
Uh-huh.
I couldn't find up until today, like 2025, they have the NIMH, the National Institute of Mental Health, only has like most recent was 2023 kind of like there. But among males, the suicide rate among males was 22.8 per 100,000. Okay.
Hmm.
5.9 for 100,000 females. The average age was 25 to 44. And this study was done over, I think it was like 12 years or 20-year study, sorry, 2002 to 2022. And of that, they did, of the NCAA athletes, they found out of 1,102 athlete deaths, 8 of them, which was 11.6, was died by suicide, which that's a lot if you think about that. And that is only what has actually been reported, right? But of the 128 suicides, 98 of them were male.
Mm. Yeah,
You
it's a
know,
lot.
that is a lot, right? And so this kind of gets me thinking, like, which kind of is where you're at now, which is why is this happening so, like, especially among men and athletes,
Hmm.
right? And like I said, I've worked with other athletes. I work with athletes. I talk about it. And why is it? Is it because there's no forum for discussion? Like, because the whole belief in society is that men are strong, men shouldn't deal with emotions, they shouldn't cry, and forget even that you're an athlete, right? Look what you do on the
Hmm.
field, all of this, like in the strength, and you're hardcore, and you can knock people over, and you can, you walk away.
Hmm.
Like you said, a teammate gets carried off, and you're just back playing the next. I mean, we've seen plenty of sports where teammates have passed and they're still playing.
Yeah,
They put the
yeah,
numbers on their helmets or their jerseys or things like that. But how do you, how, why do you think that is? Is that because it's not being spoken about a lot amongst males? Like you were standing in the locker room, you didn't know who to turn to.
yeah. I think that could be some of it. Not talking about it as much. I
Hmm.
mean, that's the first part is awareness, being aware of what you're dealing with, right?
Right.
And that sometimes might not come up in people's minds. But the one thing that I do know is that once you get to a place where you're depressed and you don't really have an outlet to speak about it, or you don't have a safe space to speak
Hmm.
about it, you become isolated. And when you become isolated, you sit with your own thoughts. And when you
Right.
sit with your own thoughts, that's when you think about suicide, or
Yeah.
it may happen. And that's what I see a lot. Even, in the NFL, we talk about, Marshawn kneeling and things like
I
those things
know.
happening. And
Because we were supposed to do our
it's
podcast
sad.
that week. That was the week. And
Man,
he was a player.
I was sick.
My dearest, bestest friend's son, who I'm actually going to have on my podcast as well, he was a quarterback for Maryland, and he was a teammate of his. And as soon as I heard that,
Hmm.
I reached out to him, because I needed to check in on him. He's like, I've known him before he was even born. I've been best friends with his dad, and so we were supposed to do our podcast, and it was interesting because I think it would have actually been a lot harder for me to like show up at that time. So it works out how things worked out. Like we couldn't do the podcast then because
Yeah,
he was really upset by that. And he's like I said, he's a son.
I was too.
And I
Yeah.
could only imagine, right? And it's
Hmm.
like you hear about that and it's like, and so young and like what can be done, right? So that's why I'm like, I've got to do this because for my listeners,
Yeah.
and that's what I tell my clients, I tell people in general, you wouldn't go to a bad neighborhood by yourself. Don't sit with your own negative thoughts by yourself. Like,
Yep.
don't go to your mind. Think of your mind as a bad neighborhood, especially when those thoughts come up. Like, don't go
Right.
there by yourself. You know,
Yep.
talk to somebody, speak it out loud because when you speak it, sometimes it takes you back to the present moment. It brings you right back, like, oh, wow, what's going on? So
Yeah.
you're now,
Yeah.
take us now, like, to where you are today and what you're doing. Because I remember, like, what you're doing is just so necessary and so important. And I think we need so much like more of this.
Hmm. Yeah. And I talk to probably about 20 guys a week. And a lot of those calls is just them dumping,
Sometimes that's
you
all they
know?
need.
Because guys, I mean, think about us, man. There's probably a lot of stuff that go on. And it's stuff that I still don't talk about. I have to remind myself, like, no, Marcus, I might have to write it down to talk to my therapist about because you forget. You know what I mean?
Right.
You want to make sure that you're not holding on to something.
Well, the brain
And I
is
wanted to, yeah,
your brain is somewhat protecting you at a but moment there. So it's not
yeah,
like you're intentionally not talking about it. It's that
yes,
look, let's be honest. Although you're at where you are, it still takes a lot of awareness to change that muscle memory of the brain of like to just stuff it, shove it, shut down. Right.
yeah,
So yeah.
yeah,
So keeping a journal, writing it down is also a way
yeah,
to get it out. So you
yeah,
talk to
yeah.
about
And
20 guys a
that's what I
week.
started doing. Talk to about 20 guys a week, but I wanted to speak on what you had said. You were talking about your son.
Yeah.
I think the need to be competitive, right, can be a little bit overwhelming. Like sometimes you just don't. Why do I feel like I got to compete for this? You know what I mean? Sometimes you just want to be, the person that you are.
And just
Sometimes
enjoy
you get
life.
tired of competing, right?
Yeah.
Like, why am I competing for this job or this position? And okay, if I don't get it, cool. It's okay. But just the thought of like competing,
Yeah.
right? Sometimes can be overwhelming
Of
and too
course.
much for some people, right?
Right.
But that's a lot of the work that I do now. I started a company called the Circle of M Incorporated,
Yeah.
and after I did my 30-day stay at All Points North, I partner with All Points North to create healing circles for the athletes that come through APN. And then after that, I was able to partner with the APA Foundation and Refine Recovery and other people who wanted to kind of to do the same thing for guys who were coming into treatment and wanted a certain community. So I've been all over being able to talk to Congress about what you just talked about the suicide rates
I love
in our
that.
communities and why it's so high. So usually every year for mental health awareness, whether it's suicide awareness in September or if it's mental health awareness in May, I try to go down to Congress to really see what bills we can pass to be able to
Mm,
help a lot of the men, but not just the men, but just people in general who are dealing with suicide. And a lot of it has to deal with um, social media as well,
oh,
the NIL stuff with college. You got to think, man. When I was in college, it wasn't we
it
money
wasn't
wasn't
this.
wasn't something. No, it was. So you have to have something in place that is protecting them, not physically, but mentally. And
100%.
so
I
I've
totally agree.
partnered with athletes.org, which athletes.org is like the PA of college. They're
Right.
like a college league to be able to help them have what they need if they need a lawyer, if they need a therapist, if they need a
Yeah.
psychiatrist, whatever.
Have to reach out to them.
So yeah, so if you look up athletes.org, you'll see their whole thing, but they are trying to change the landscape of college because right now you're seeing I was just on social media and I was scrolling and I seen a college student athlete pass away. And I was just like,
Mm,
what's going on? So we are trying to get ahead of it. But I think what you're doing, Rachel, is this is needed. Okay.
yeah.
This is super needed. And you keep doing what you do
Well,
because
thank you.
the stories is what's gonna help people.
And that's why I started this podcast. I started this podcast so because if I could, I always say, like, when I win the lottery, because I buy my ticket, and I believe and when I win the lottery, I would not stop working. It would just pivot differently, right? Because obviously now I have to balance working to provide for my family. My kids are still in college, right? And so, and I have to do that. But I also do some pro bono. I also do sliding scales. But that's why I started this podcast, is because there are a lot of people who have too much shame to get into therapy. Maybe they don't have the family support. Maybe they don't have the finances. And that's why I started this. And I just started to bring on guests in the past, like probably like the last 6 months, because I mean, people, yeah, you can listen to me and I can give some suggestions and advice and talk about how I use skills, but like the stories that there is this beautiful light, even though all of this, the stuff that somebody's gone through has been so painful, that there is a light to the end. You just have to remember that
Mhm.
while that light looks very dim in this moment, it can be brighter, right? And it's not going to be
Love
overnight.
that.
It's not going to, but you're going to have to do the work. And that's the thing I think a lot of people don't realize. People don't realize that, you know what? Yes, there is plenty of medication. I don't provide medication. I will refer to psychiatrists. And many people do need medication. But there's a lot of people that don't need medication, right? That just need the tools. Like you said, they haven't been taught this tools, right? The tool that you were taught from a very young age is to stuff it, to just shove it down,
Yep.
which is why you probably excelled in a lot of ways on the field because that was your outlet. That was probably the time where you didn't even think about anxiety. You weren't even like anxious about, whereas maybe there's other players that get out there and they're like, all they're doing is thinking about like, am I going to catch this? Am I not? Am I going to make this nice kick? Am I going to throw well? You weren't, this
Yep.
was your outlet, right? And so I would totally have a mobile vehicle where it's already planted out in my mind, right? Like what I would do because I would love to help the world and everybody because there isn't a lot of this. And I mean, my kids are they are fortunate that they have me as a mom, as a therapist. And there are also times where they're like, Mom, I don't need you to solve this right now. And I think that's also because I've given them that space to say, Hey, Mom, like, please, I'm just venting. Right. And
Yeah.
sometimes I get caught up in that, because I want to fix, I want to help. Right. But
Yeah.
being able to talk about it, I think is so important. And that's, what people, I mean, to the point where I've even asked, I'm now talking to him about like, does UCF have a mental health department? Do they have somebody there for the players? Because let's face it, these players are 20, 19, and the amount of money that they're making from this NIL, which I understand it's great in a lot of ways, but it's also like a 20-year-old doesn't know how to manage getting millions of dollars. And then
Yeah.
you know what it also impacts. And this is again just from like what I've observed, what I've heard, what I've worked with is the mental aspect of, well, I'm worth this. Because remember, their brain is not that developed.
Yeah.
35-year-old or even a 25-year-old. There are 19, 20-year-old that are coming out of high school if they've even graduated high school, right? Or no, they
Yeah.
graduate high school to get to that college, but then to get to to the NBA or NFL, they may not even finish school, right? And they're given all this money. They don't know how to manage it, right? And
Yep.
then they don't know how to continue possibly working. And I'm not saying that this is for everybody, but with such a young mind that hasn't learned the journeys of life and the hardships of life and given millions, right? Their work ethic might change. They're no longer competing for that spot because they have this mindset that, well, I'm given millions this age. It's a shoo-in. But the reality,
Can I
right?
say this?
Yeah,
When I got drafted first round, it was like my shoulders dropped. And I'm
yeah,
like, man, I'm here now. But then once I got there, oh man, there's more work that I have to do. Wow. I got to change. I had to change my mindset like right away. And I agree with what you're saying. Yes, it does change their mindset because such a young age, they can't even really rationalize. All they can see is, oh, I'm getting millions of dollars, like,
100%.
and this is what I'm worth. Why do I have to keep doing this if I can get this?
Right. And they
Yeah.
are some of the best players, but they're not even working to their potential. It's almost like you kind of want the players that really aren't the best, but their work
Mhm.
ethic is like they are going to fight tooth and nail because they're not getting a dime, right?
Yeah.
They want that spot. And so you see them buying chains and it's all over social media. But like you said, this social media is just, it's so, I mean, even for myself, right? I try to get myself onto social media to help, but I even find myself, okay, now I'm 54. I'm a really confident person, but you open up my TikTok app and I like shrivel up to this insecure human being who must press start and stop, delete, and all the time because I'm like, oh, it's not good enough. I just done it this way. Then I'm like, what are you doing? Get the heck off of
Mhm.
this. Like, what you didn't come here for this. You
I do
came.
the same thing.
And so having to still be your authentic self and show up is really difficult in a world that we're living in. So, I'm not saying because I don't want people to come at me and be like, oh, you don't want the players to get NIL number. I'm not saying that at all, but have something in place. Have them with a
Yep.
financial manager, have them with somebody who can help teach them about investments. I mean, there are probably plenty of people who are great with that, but let's be honest, I mean, I have a 20-year-old and a 22-year-old, almost 22-year-old. One is pretty good with their money and the other one is like getting so much better, right?
Yeah.
But I know it wasn't until I actually was getting divorced that I had to learn how to
Yeah.
save and
Yeah.
spend and pay bills. So now you have these kids are 18 to 20 getting millions.
Yeah.
If they don't,
There's no parameters that set up.
right. And that's, I think,
So
is a big piece, like you said.
Mhm.
So how can like the public help? Like, I mean, I'm going to obviously put whatever we can in the show notes so that people can not necessarily to you themselves, but like resources, right? Like you said, like
Mhm.
athletes.org and other places I know. And APN, we touched on very quickly, but for the listeners, it's a fabulous residential facility that is really actually, I mean, they're geared towards like the high end athletes, right?
Mhm.
And I when I went out to see that was my first time seeing the facility, and oh my gosh, I asked if I could maybe just pop in there for 30 days. Like, can't I just have a 30-day reprieve and work on myself? Because
Yeah.
what they offer, they don't just offer one type of therapy. They offer so many options because let's be honest, there's not a one size fits all, right? At
Mhm.
all. And so that and the resources that they have and the abilities and the therapists and just I mean, everything, it looked really amazing, and I'm sure it's a lot
It
of hard
changed my
work.
life.
I bet. And you know what I did observe, and one thing I admired about you so much is that you came to the training, right? And yeah, you work for APN and you have that connection with them. But when we went to see the facilities, right? And then there was an after happy hour kind of like thing. You didn't come. And I was like worried at first because you said you were going to be there. And then when I spoke to you, you said, you had to stay back. You really felt like you needed to stay back because there were some guys there that they just wanted to talk. And like you just put that out there, like, you know what? I'm here for me too, to learn and to socialize and to kind of network, but these guys need me. And I think that if my listeners can recognize that sometimes it's okay to just put aside some of the commitments that you did say you're going to do for the welfare of just showing up for somebody if they're especially at that opportunity, right?
Yeah.
When my kids want to talk, or if my husband, if people want to talk, like especially the males in my life, I'm going to drop whatever I'm doing, even if I'm going to be honest with you, even if I don't really understand what they're talking about, right?
Yeah.
I'm going to drop because they want to talk. And it's so rare that
Yeah.
men just say, hey, can we talk?
Yeah.
So at
That's
that
that.
moment, yeah. And I remember thinking like, and I think I did had just had one or two guests on. I thought, oh, I've got to have him on my podcast. But like, I'll be honest with you, like it terrified me to have you on my podcast at first
What?
because it's a new thing for me. Like, right. I'm good
Yeah.
at talking. I could talk about stuff on my own, but having somebody that is experienced what you've done, not only just in the NFL world, but just as a suicide survivor and just what you're doing, it's intimidating, but you're just like a big teddy bear. It was like so easy to like in that moment when I was there at APN, I just remember like you're just so easy to talk to. And if everyone had like a
Thank
Marcus,
you.
and I think that, but I think the takeaway of, and I have a few questions if we have still time. Um,
Hmm.
but I think the takeaway for a lot of people is that you just need that one person, like you just need to find that one person. And sometimes it is a risk that you take to talk to that person and hopefully it pays out. But like if it doesn't, don't stop at that one person if you didn't get the response you wanted. You know,
Yeah.
I think you
Some
were very
some
fortunate
people,
to have like Pete to be able to go talk to him and him just be like, yeah, we got you.
man, Pete and
Right.
my D-line coach
That's
I
amazing.
was so shocked. Was just like, really? And go,
I'll go.
because I've been playing football every fall since I was 5. Never
That's
not
right.
played.
Right.
So,
So let me ask you this. So how did we didn't touch upon this, and I'm not sure if you've shared it in publicly, but what was it like to tell your family that you were choosing not just going away to mental health, like to take care of your mental health? Because I think that a lot of people, as hard as it is to talk about mental health, I think a lot of people kind of also fall back on that as a crutch, like, you know what, it's my mental health I got to take care of, versus a choice. You know what? I want to choose differently, right? Like I want to choose a different path than playing as a competitive player anymore. What was that like to tell your
Yeah.
family?
It was, I had to talk to my wife about it because I was trying to figure out the best way to tell them. I remember having a conversation, and don't get me wrong, me and my dad are very close. But I remember having a conversation with my dad, and he was like, "What do you mean you got
Right.
anxiety? What do you mean?" He kept saying that to me. He was just like, "You're doing something that a lot of people would die to do, right? So what possibly could you be upset about
Right.
or have anxiety about or be depressed about?" So, but my mom was kind of scared because she just wished that just the womanly nature,
Yeah.
uh, just wanting to be there for your son. She
Yeah.
was she was just kind of like distraught, kind of like how my wife was.
Yeah.
But it wasn't an easy thing because what happened was Pete had to release me.
Mm.
In order for me to keep my money, he had to cut me because if not, I would have had
Wow.
to go on the I think they call it like exempt list or something like that, and
Okay.
I would have to give money back. So they had to release me. So in the media, it was like Marcus Smith II has been released by the Seattle Seahawks. So
Right.
when all my family seen it, they trying to figure out what the heck is going on, and
Right.
people were talking. People that didn't like me are like, "Ah, you got cut,"
Right.
and blah blah blah. So now my family is like calling me. My dad was calling me like, "Man, what's going on?" Like, because everybody at his job is,
Right.
yeah. Um, but it's a little different now because I think people see how important it is,
Yeah.
especially after COVID. Um, and I could be talking to my dad and he could be opening up to me and not even realizing it.
100. I was just gonna say he probably doesn't even realize how you've gotten him to kind of like talk.
Nope, he'll talk to me about relationships. He'll talk to me about his mom or like what. Whoa.
That's so funny. What is that?
I don't know. But yeah, it's. I mean, in the beginning, he was like, "Man, I can't get with the mental health stuff because, there's a lot of baggage that he carries that he doesn't want to open."
Yeah.
Um, he's actually doing better. And then one other thing that I would always say, when you talked about listening, I think a lot of people hear, but they don't listen.
Mhm.
And sometimes when you just sit and listen with no judgment and just let people talk, they'll talk for hours. you
100%.
know? And I've been told that a lot. Like if like when I was at APN, I just happened to just go down there because I mean, one of them was my teammate, right? He was in there, and then another guy. We just what's a football family, right? So I go and sit at the table, and they're just talking to me, right? And I'm just listening, and it just ended up being 2 hours,
Right.
almost 3 hours, because I just wanted to be because maybe they hadn't had that in a long time, and
100%.
so I try to be sensitive to that and let people get it out, because I know
Yeah,
how that feels to not get it out.
of course. But I think you're such a great example, and for the young men that are listening, I will tell you that when my son was playing ball, like, and because I went up pretty much often to watch him play in Chicago, and it was so cold, but I'm like, I'm
Hmm.
coming, right? And some of his teammates would come up and say, "Thank you so much for your podcast. Like, I love this one. I love this. I really, like I didn't even realize I was struggling with that. Like, you gave it a name for me." And I think that what people don't realize is like our young men, especially our young men, because women, we can talk for hours, right? Let's just be honest. We can talk, we can gossip, we share probably way too much, right? Men don't. It's not something that is almost like it's like our
Yeah.
society is taught that you're a man, you buck up, you don't show emotions. And why your dad is probably feeling what he's feeling is because that's what he was taught,
Yep.
you know? I mean, that's what he was taught. He's probably about my age, right? And I mean, that was what he was taught,
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
for him to now sit down and like open up that gate, would be probably, but I tell my clients, sometimes I sit in therapy and I'm silent, and I tell my clients, silence is like golden. It doesn't have to be scary, especially if you're with people. You'd be surprised. You want somebody to talk, just don't talk. Because most people are so uncomfortable with silence that they just start talking.
Yeah.
And before they know it, they're like, "Oh my God, I can't believe I've just shared that with you." So,
And I had to learn that as a life coach too,
I'm sure.
which I learned, you being who you are, I'm sure you know, like
Hmm.
I had to learn that, we don't do that much of the talking, right? You have to
Right.
let them talk. And yeah, I try to take that with me. And
Yeah.
man, it feels good for me too,
Totally.
because I can feel the release when they're releasing. And I'm like, man, I feel lighter with you, you know?
Yeah, right. And it goes
Yeah.
back to like that competitive nature, right? Like I'm a competitive athlete, right? I didn't play ball, I didn't run, but I've done I've done a full Ironman, I've done, I don't know, 16 full marathons, I've done 35, 40 half marathons. And I'm going to tell you something when you
Goodness.
said about the competitive, right? Last weekend, was it last weekend? We went to Memphis, Tennessee to do a half marathon. Now, I haven't run since the last half marathon I did for St. Jude. And this is what, because it's a big cause, right? My husband's company does a lot with them, and it's just it's a great weekend. But I haven't run anymore. And I said, okay, I'm just going to run walk this half, right? I can't remember the last time I ran walk. I can't remember I walked ever in any of my races. And I found myself initially, even though logically I know that I'm not timing it. It's not going to be anywhere close to a PR, or let alone I'm doing it for the children. But that competitive nature in me came out just a bit at the beginning before I started to think like, do you think you could really just run this 13? Like maybe you should just give it a try. And I thought to myself, no, you don't need to do that. You don't need to do that. And I will tell you, I literally enjoyed the full 13.1 because I was in the moment. I did not care about my time. I did not care if it was my fastest, my slowest ever. I stopped at every single mile. We took pictures and we engaged. I got chocolate along the course and I high fived all the kids. Where in all my races, I've never done that because I needed to beat my best time. I needed, and that in alone, it's a ton of pressure. But when you
Yep.
take that pressure off and you can just enjoy, right? And even not defend why you're running walking. Because I think as
Yep.
athletes, we have a tendency to have to give a reason why it wasn't our fastest, why we're only enjoying it versus like really running, you know? And
You said something there. That was key right there. Because when I was in the NFL, being in college, obviously wasn't getting paid like that. We would
right,
get our stipends or whatnot, but it was just joy in college. Once you get to the league, the only way you keep playing is if you perform.
right.
So there's a need to perform, and sometimes you just want to be. You just want
Yeah.
to.
Enjoy
I
it.
don't. I don't want to. Right, and then you start looking at, instead of really focusing on yourself and you being your best self, you
Yep.
start looking at everything around you like, oh, I need to be better than this, or I need to do this, instead of just being where your feet are.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Marcus, I'm going to look at what question I have because most of it we did answer, right? Because did you ever, right? So, like, we
Mhm.
talk about like when people hear NFL player, right? Even today, right? What assumptions do you think they make about your mental health that feel completely wrong? Even today, even though you're speaking about it, do they have a belief, like an assumption about you because you're an NFL player that is completely wrong?
I do think that a lot of people, they think all NFL players suffer with CTE, and it has something to do with something mentally going on with them, right? Or when they look at me, they see me, and then they see another player, something has happened to another player, then they were like, "Oh, are you dealing with that too?" But see, I think the difference with me, we're not saying that that doesn't exist and that it
Correct.
isn't out there, right? But what we're also saying is that I take a proactive approach, not a reactive approach, right?
Okay.
So the more messaging, the more awareness I can get out there, the more solutions that I can uh, partner with, like you guys, APA, All Points, they have the solutions to be able to help guys create a pathway that is sustainable for the rest of their lives. Right?
Absolutely.
I'm I'm 33. I'm going to be 34. I've had concussions and things of that nature. I've dealt with some of the cognitive impairments, but I also know that because I'm proactive, I've gotten better.
Right. And that's key.
So yeah, that's what I would say. Yeah.
Well, thank you. I mean, I so appreciate you, and I really hope for the listeners that you take away just the need to just be honest and with somebody that you can trust, and just you don't have to do this journey alone at all,
Nope.
right? Whether it's a therapist, I mean, anybody you could try, and you don't need to know them personally. And that's the thing, like you don't have to tell your best friend, you don't have to tell your partner. You tell somebody that maybe that first person that can just take that first bit of like stuff off your shoulders, that you kind of get a
Hmm.
sense of like, okay, that didn't feel horrible, right? And now I can go talk here, right? Like I've got to imagine your father was not going to be the first person you were going to go speak to about. And that doesn't mean that doesn't, and that, right. And that doesn't mean that you guys don't have a great relationship and he doesn't adore you and love you and vice versa. It just means that you needed somebody that you felt like was going to have the understanding. And you took a gamble with Pete. And I think that it sounds like, I mean, he's kind of always shown that, like he's there for the players. Like you don't have to personally know him to kind of see that. But like, I think that that gave you that like little edge off the shoulders. So I appreciate you so much. I'm so glad that your wife and your mother-in-law called and that it scared the living crap out of you with that Bluetooth. Um, you know, because you're around and you are this, like we all have different journeys in our lives and different purposes at different times. And you're not defined by, the NFL. You are Marcus Smith the second because this is who you are.
Thank you so much
No.
for having me.
No, thank you. I appreciate you. And I'm going to leave in my show notes. I'll put a lot of resources there for anybody that is struggling. But thank you, Marcus. I so appreciate you for joining. And if you guys like this, subscribe, listen, follow me.
Please.
Yes. Thank you for listening, Marcus and me at Perfectly Imperfect Me 365. I so appreciate you. Thank you.
Thank you.